It seemed like the perfect match right from the start. A young Victoria made her first splash into the pool when she was 3 and never looked back. Coaches picked her out from the recreational swimming class at the age of 6 when they noticed her strong physique and natural ability. It wasn't long before Victoria began competing and winning medals. Her mother, Deborah, recalls the early rise to stardom.
Tori was a fish instantly. Her grandparents had a pool when she was growing up, and we would have to drag her away screaming and crying almost every day in the summer. When she started into the competitive swimming club, we noticed such a change in Tori. I hadn't seen an 8-year-old so determined, so focused, or so disciplined. Swimming wasn't just a hobby, it was her everything.
As her abilities increased, so did her training regime. By the time Victoria was 15, she was training 6 days a week, and while still attending a prestige private school and scoring the top percentiles in her class. All the success and attention turned upside down when Victoria was 17, however, as she began to experience pain in her right shoulder.
I was stubborn back then. Stupid, really. I was in pain, but I didn't want to tell my parents or my coach. I was worried that they would be disappointed in me or think that I couldn't reach my goal. I started taking Advil and ibuprofen to see if it would help with the pain, but that only worked for so long. I couldn't raise my arm over my head or sleep even without experiencing some kind of pain. I kept training though. How could I stop if I wanted to be the best, right? No pain, no gain. Eventually one of my teammates told me about their physiotherapist and I reluctantly booked an appointment.
When my assistant and I first met Victoria, we knew she was more in pain than she actually let on. After testing Victoria with the empty can and drop arm test, we suspected that she had supraspinatus tendinitis and an imbalance with her internal and external rotators. Given her symptoms and age, we also determined that Victoria was in her second stage of rotator cuff tendinitis. Because Victoria swims the butterfly stroke and freestyle strokes, she uses these muscles constantly, overusing them. Overhead sports like swimming challenge the rotator cuff to keep the humeral head in place in the glenoid. This prevents pathologic displacement, causing extreme force on the shoulder. The result of this is decreased muscular efficiency and a loss of dynamic stability, leading to functional instability and a progressive tissue failure. This instability leads to a mechanical impingement of the supraspinatus tendon on the coracoacromial arch.
Leisure created a program for Victoria, and under her direction, I would work with Victoria twice a week. The first thing we wanted Victoria to do is rest, and it was difficult to convince her to do this because she lived by her exercise schedule. We told her that rest is important because she was overusing her shoulders and that she would prevent healing or possibly push herself into stage 3 of her injury, which would significantly impact her ability to not only swim but perform activities of daily living. During the acute phase of our treatment, we did not do any overhead movements or activities that would cause an increase in her symptoms. We focused on pain reduction and early treatment with ultrasound and IFC while educating her to ice at home before going to bed to help with night pain.
I was so resistant to the training program that Lidgie and Chiffon had set out for me. They wanted me to take a complete rest from swimming and anything that caused me pain. I couldn't do it. I knew in my head that if I took even one day off of training, it would set me back. And I knew my coach would feel the same way about it. At that point in my competitive career, I was so into the way that I looked and being in great physical shape. I was not only in the pool 6 days a week, but I was also seeing a personal trainer 3 to 4 days a week as well. I became obsessed with my body and the way that it looked. I would count calories every day, and if I thought I went over my limit, I would go for a run so that I wouldn't gain weight.
Victoria was approaching a dangerous time in her career. With her strict training schedule and her calorie counting, she was diagnosed with primary amenorrhea. While other girls her age have already hit puberty and have had their first period, Victoria had not hit this milestone. This is a positive for a female swimmer that want to be on the top of their game, but it's a red flag for the physiotherapy team.
When Lidgie and I first looked into Victoria's medical history, we became alarmed when we saw that she was diagnosed with primary amenorrhea. Then when she accidentally disclosed to us about her eating habits, and we became further alarmed and knew that we had to contact her parents right away.
Through my practice, I have seen several other female athletes in similar situations like Victoria. Though it took much convincing on our behalf, we were able to set up a meeting with Victoria and her mother.
When I was contacted by the physio, I assumed they wanted to update me on Tori's injury. When my husband and I knew Tori had primary amenorrhea, we were convinced that it was just because of her training from such a young age. Because of our long days at work as lawyers, we had no idea that Tori was eating so little and exercising to compensate for apparent weight gain. While Tori may not have been pleased in the moment, my husband and I were so grateful to Liji and Chiffon for opening our eyes to the possible dangerous road that Tori was heading down. We contacted both a dietitian and sports psychologist. Victoria was at a high risk of an eating disorder due to the pressure to excel in a sport that emphasizes lean appearance at such a young age. I was concerned that Victoria might fall into the female athlete triad. She already has amenorrhea and is on the edge of an eating disorder. This could lead to low bone density, causing stress fractures. It is very important that I spend time with Victoria, showing her how to eat properly with her very active lifestyle.
Brittany, my dietitian, and Stephen, my sports psychologist, definitely had their work cut out for them. I didn't want to listen to anything that they had to say or any advice they had to give me because I thought me and my coach had everything all worked out. Once I learned that Stephen actually used to be a competitive swimmer himself, I was more open to what he had to say. He helped me understand that this no pain, no gain and win at all costs mentality was actually destructive to my training and how I would do instead of helpful. Because of this advice, I actually ended up leaving my longtime coach because he was the one that was enabling and really encouraging this type of destructive attitude. Eventually, I came around to listening to what Brittany had to say about my diet and what I should be eating. She helped me understand that I actually needed more calories to help support the kind of training I was doing and help with my recovery. With their advice, I was able to finally take the time to rest my shoulder and then carry on with my physio treatment.
With Victoria's physician, he suggested that she should discontinue with over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications. He instead suggested that she take subacromial injection, and we supported the idea. We also looked into scapular taping to ensure proper biomechanics of scapulohumeral and scapulothoracic joints during swimming.
Once Victoria took time to rest, we were able to move on to the second part of her treatment plan, which focused on range of motion and stretching. We used both manual and self-stretches with techniques with Victoria. We also taught Victoria some range of motion techniques, active assisted and active range of motion.
Next, we began to incorporate the strengthening portion of Victoria's rehab program. We needed to focus on educating not only Victoria, but her personal trainer and her new coach as well. We needed them to understand that larger reps and heavier weights would not get Victoria better faster. We focused on proper movements with light weights as well as completing the movements with the correct techniques and muscles, as Victoria had mastered raising her arm by using substitution motions. We also included strengthening in pool using water as resistance against certain movements. This allowed Victoria to still be in the pool, something that we know she loves.
Once everyone involved in Victoria's treatment and training were all on the same page, especially with the help of her new coach, who truly valued the rehab process, Victoria was able to make a lot of progress. This included better test results. She was able to complete the empty can test properly, and also the drop arm test. Victoria also had an increased range of motion with decreased pain. And there was a significant improvement in the strength of her rotator cuff.
I'm sure it seemed that all the changes in my eating habits, mentality, and rehab process just happened overnight. but that was definitely not the case. It was a really long process of frustration, failure, and hard work.
My husband and I are so proud of Tori, not just because of her success as a swimmer, but how she battled her demons and won. Seeing her go off to Stanford on a full athletic scholarship was incredible. She was confident, healthy, and positively in control of her life. That moment meant more to us than any medal she could receive. Our family will never be able to thank Tori's treatment team enough for all they did for her and for us.
My treatment team saved my life. I am here at the Olympic Games because of everything that they have done for me. I will forever be grateful for how they've changed me as an athlete and as a person. When I stand on the podium, part of that medal is for them. This is our Olympics.